You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your hosts, Steph and Tara, every Wednesday morning as they dive into a new witchy topic.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you are listening to episode 6, where we are going to be talking about grounding, centering, and energy manipulation.
Woohoo! Mostly stuff, though.
Yes. So for this podcast, you are mostly going to be listening to me talk about this. And there are 2 reasons for that. First of all, this is something that Tara is not particularly good at, which she's talked about before with her ADHD and short attention span, that the sort of focus that's required for these things is not something that she's necessarily good at.
I am not naturally gifted at these things.
But it is something that I am naturally gifted at. And the second reason I think that I'm able to talk about this a little more than Tara is because it's something that you really only think about in the forefront of your mind when you're a beginner. If you've been practicing for as long as Tara has, this is something that comes more naturally to her. So these are things that you do them automatically. It comes naturally to you later after you've been practicing. So this is really an episode for like true beginners if you've never heard about this stuff before. So this is kind of the woo-woo side of witchcraft is what I like to call it. So a lot of people, they think about witchcraft and just like reading words off a page and think that's a spell. That's like not really it. A lot of it is about energy manipulation, and people think that's kind of woo-woo. So just stick with me.
Woo-woo!
So these 3 ideas, we're going to get into what they are. They really work together, which is why we group them all into one podcast, because you won't have that much energy to manipulate if you don't center and ground, and you can't do centering and grounding without understanding how to manipulate your own energy. So let's start with energy manipulation. And it is just that, the ability to gather, contain, and move energy around. That includes our own energy as well as the energy of the earth or various items that you might be using, like crystals or herbs. It's used in almost every form of magical workings, because to get some sort of magical response from a spell or ritual or charm, anything else, it requires the release of energy.
Yes.
We charge the intention with our energy and then release that energy into the world to gain the magical response that we're looking for. That's witchcraft. So the ability to manipulate energy in this way is vital. That's why we've said before that you can't just read words off a page and expect that to be a spell that works for you. You need that energy behind your intention to gain a response.
Yes.
Centering is the term that's used to refer to collecting our energy into a central point, which can then be directed out into the world, into objects like candles or crystals during spell work and rituals. This practice is something that becomes completely second nature very quickly, but it can be tricky at the beginning if you've never done it before or like never heard of any of these things before.
Also, for me personally, that's how I got into Wicca more than witchcraft at the beginning, because they have built-in ceremonies that help you with this. So if you don't, or if you're not interested in Wicca, but you're not good at centering, I would suggest looking at some of their rituals, because that is how I was able to even start on the process. Because as you said, this is not something that I'm good at focusing on, but it is
that's
helpful.
a good idea. I mean, I'll definitely talk a little bit about like how you can do it or how I do it. And if you want to give it a try and that's not something that comes naturally to you, you might want to look into Wicca for those reasons that Tara said. So grounding then is one of the most important skills to learn for beginners, because mastering it can solve a lot of problems that beginner practitioners can face. So grounding is simply the term that refers to connecting our personal energy to the energy of the earth. The earth's energy is neutral. It has no intention, which makes it a great resource to draw from and then put into your own workings. This is different than using the energy of a crystal or an herb, like those that we talk about when we talked about the ones associated with Imbolc. Those have specific energies that will affect your workings and work towards a specific intention, whereas the earth's energy can be manipulated into any type of intention. Because one of the most common...
It feels good.
Yes, true. One of the most common questions that beginners have to ask is whether or not it's normal to feel very drained or alternatively very high energy, like sort of vibrating after doing a working. And the answer is yes, but if you can master grounding and centering, then you should be able to avoid these issues. So think about it the same way as working a regular job. If you work 8 hours a day without eating or drinking anything or sleeping to give you energy, you're going to feel completely drained. Magic is very similar. If you use all of your personal energy in a particular spell or ritual, you're going to feel similarly drained. The way to combat this is to learn to ground before, during, and after working, because you are pulling energy up from the earth to replace your own, and in the end, you end up balanced. If you wind up with too much energy and have that buzzy, vibrating feeling, you can release some of that back down into the earth. So yes, now that you have a general overview of these things, and to talk you through kind of how you would do each of these. So let's talk about the energy manipulation first. You really want to, if you've never done this before, start in a calm, quiet space, close your eyes and visualize yourself, your body, and tap into what your energy feels like. It's naturally distributed all over your body. And the more you practice this, the more you're going to be able to feel it. This energy is going to look different for everybody because everyone sees their own energy differently. A lot of people feel it as warm and sparkling like a firecracker, but it can also come in waves like water or blobs of light or myriad of other types. Mine personally, which if you know me makes sense, is cold. It feels like snow flurries kind of all over my body. And when I move it, it turns into more like blizzardy and like a snowball, like gathering it. So it could go.
Which ironically is mine is warmth.
So not ironic at all, because if you know Tara and I, you know she is the warm, I have the cold.
Literally the yin and yang there.
So take some time, meditate, find out what yours is, and visualize it all over your body. It's going to feel strange the first time that you try to do this, and you might not get it right away, but the more that you do it in a calm, quiet space, the more in tune you're going to be with it and figure out what it is. So once you have it and feel it, it's easy to do over and over. So once you have it, begin to pull that from different areas throughout your body and try to condense it into one mass. Move it towards your hands or your feet and feel it slowly leaving your fingertips, and then try to draw it back in. This is energy manipulation. So when we talk about centering, visualize that energy coming together and start to draw it towards your core. Again, close your eyes if you need to. Once it's in a column in the center of your body, draw it into one specific spot. For some people, this is the third eye area, which is like on your forehead. For some, it's the heart or stomach. I find people that are very food motivated tend to gather their energy in their stomach. Just naturally, it happens that way.
Me.
I knew you were going to say that, Sarah. The more you practice this, the easier it'll become to gather this into one little ball of energy and then hold it there. The idea of holding it there in that one spot from which you can then distribute it is called centering. So grounding is the last one. So sit comfortably, place your hands or feet on the floor, whichever one you want to direct your energy. A lot of people use feet, but if it's easier for you to use your hands, you can do it that way. Center it and focus that energy. Move it towards your feet if that's what you choose, and draw it down. Visualize roots growing out of your feet into the surface and then down into the earth. From there, you can feel the earth's energy. It'll likely feel very different from your own. Usually people see it as a light, usually a white light. Use the roots and draw the earth's energy back up through your feet and into your body, mixing with your own. You can then use this combined energy for your magical working. Once you're done, balance the energy and slowly pull the roots back up and out of the earth. That's called grounding. Those are all three of mine. And I know that for the first time, if you've never done this before, it sounds very woo-woo. I get that, but I promise you, the more that you practice this, visualize it, and try to make it work, the more you're going to be able to feel it and be much more in tune with your body. And this is going to help you so much in your magical workings. And if you're like Tara, where this does not come naturally to you at all and you really struggle with it, then I would look into the Wiccan practices that she talks about.
Yes. The first time I managed to actually do this, it was glorious and it cured my headache. So it does take time. It probably took me at least 6 months to be able to get this without it being just a huge strain and being able to actually feel that it was making a difference. But once you get it, it is really nice to be able to do, and it's just cleansing.
Yes. And it takes a long time at the beginning when you are trying to figure out something you've never done before, but after you've really gotten it once, it's second nature. So
it's way easier to do. Yeah.
Talk to veteran practitioners who've been doing magical workings for 20 years. They might not even know that they do this. They don't think about it. It's just something that happens naturally when they, sit down to do some sort of spell or ritual. It's something they already do. They don't have to cognitively think about it. They just do. It just happens. So the more that you practice this, the more it'll become second nature. So at the moment, in the first couple of times that you're trying to do it, it sounds like a lot of work, but eventually you won't even know that you're doing it. It'll just be something that happens. As soon as you dive into any sort of magical practice, you will end up doing it.
Yes. Also, if you've ever done yoga or Tai Chi, they both have energy as a focal point during your practice. And sometimes that helps in just visualizing things differently.
And I hope that made sense to you. And if you were visualizing it while you were listening to this podcast, I hope that you could hear Tara's outside and there's little birds in the background, which I think is really nice for like meditation. So hopefully you heard those too.
Well, it's beautiful when we're recording this, which is highly unusual weather. So I'm outside with my dog and we're not going inside until I'm numb.
Yeah. Winter in the Midwest is not this nice. We have to say it's like a particularly glorious day. So I think that's like the perfect background noise to listen to this podcast.
Yes.
But yes, this is all something that just comes with practice. But if you have any questions, either about Wicca or about, learning how to ground and center outside of any sort of religious practice, please let us know. If you listen to the end of the podcast, there is a way to leave us voicemails that we talk about. You can also find us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast, and we can answer any questions that you have there to the best of our ability.
Yes. And please keep in mind that while centering and focusing energy is not necessarily tied to any religious thing, as Steph said, sometimes just based on your background, it's easier to visualize that. And the key, at least for me, is being able to visualize what I want to happen before I could make it happen. So
yeah, I agree with that. But you definitely give it a try. I think this will help a lot of beginners. Let us know if it's something that you practice, and leave us a comment on Instagram letting us know what your energy looks like. Are you warm and sparkly like Tara, or are you cold snow flurries like me? Or something completely different. Let us know, but that is all we have for you this week. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara. Love our content? Consider donating at anchor.fm/witch-wednesdays to help keep our podcast up and running. Please leave us a voicemail on that same site if you have any questions or comments, and follow us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast.